Hi friends, today we are going to talk about how to debug. So whenever you have any production applications running, you will get scenarios in which it is not performing the way it was intended to or it is performing less efficiently than it was designed to. In all these cases, we have to find the root cause of what wrong is happening in our system and try to fix it in least amount of time. So when we say debug, what do we mean by it? Debugging means that finding the problem in a system. Finding and the problem in context of computer science is called a bug. And this bug finding is very crucial to any production experience or any company that you want to join. There are always going to be systems, and whenever there are systems, there is going to be problems encountered from time to time, and we have to fix those problems. Before fixing them, we have to find what those problems are. So, if you are given any scenarios, for example, if you are asked, or if you have to debug any system, debugging means finding the bug. So if you have to debugging any system, we have to debug any system. How do you go about doing it? So first of all, the first step of debugging the system is finding what has happened. Finding what has happened. That is very crucial. That only after you know what has happened, then and only then you can take an action appropriate to that event. So in event in this case can be a bug. Event can be a bug, it can be an alert, it can be a CST ticket, it can be alert can be 5xx alerts, high latency alert, it can be high CPU alert, and high memory usage alert. And CST tickets can be users are not able to place the orders, not able to place, not able to use website. Bug can be that in a particular scenario or a particular user is not able to place an order, or it can be anything in respect to your application, to your system. So it can be anything. Bug can be anything. Event can also be a change in trend. Change in trend. It cannot be a bug, a CST ticket. It can be just a change in trend of traffic that you're monitoring. For example, one thing that can happen is, let's say there's a spike in number of 5xx, and though the alert has not been raised because the threshold for 5xx was 400 5xx in 1 minute, and let's say your 5xx were just 200. So in that case, alert won't be raised, but since there's a spike in 5xx, you can go about debugging it why those 5xx were observed. So event can be anything. So before debugging anything, you have to first find out what has happened so that you can take an appropriate step. Then next step for debugging is where has it happened. So sometimes you can see alerts in the form that there are 5xx in the system. You know what has happened, but you don't know where those 5xx were observed. You can have different services that are present. For example, service 1, service 2, and service 3. And let's say you just said that 5xx has been observed, but where those 5xx were observed has not been mentioned. Then how you can go about checking that? You first of all, you have to you have to pinpoint where that event has happened, on which service that event has happened. So that is also very important. Whenever you are debugging anything, you should know where that event has happened, what is the source of that event. Once you have pinpointed that source of the event, then you can go about digging further in it. So that is number 2. And number 3 is pinpointing. Pinpoint where that event has happened. So for example, we have to pinpoint where it has happened. Let's say in service 1, a service can have multiple instances running. For example, let's say there are 4 boxes of this service, 4 servers of this service. This is service, not server. Service is collection of similar type of instances of server serving same traffic. So for example, let me try to give you an idea. Let me try to give you an idea. So for example, you have an ELP and you are, let's say, serving login API, and this ELB is routing traffic to 3 identical instances of I1, I2 and I3. They all are capable of serving your login traffic or login API traffic. So these three are part of the same service. This called login service maybe. So this is the login service, and they are identical. So if any one of the node goes down, rest of the nodes can continue to serve the traffic. So this is a collection of identical instances. So you have to pinpoint, for example, let's say we observed 5xx only in this service, or rather we can say we observed 5xx only in this service. Only in this case 5xx were observed. These 2 instances were not having any 5xx. How are you going to go about finding out that only instance 1 was giving the 5xx, instance 2 and instance 3 were not giving? So we are going to pinpoint that by using the CLS, central logging system. We are going to use the central logging system to pinpoint on where or what has happened where. So we are using pinpointing mechanism, or we are using central logging system to find out where exactly 5xx were observed. Let's say they were observed on instance I1 only. So we are going to grep through the logs, or we are going to search through instance I1's logs only to find out why those 5xx were observed. And fourth is why. Why those 5xx were observed. Now this is very important. Once you have pinpointed where that event is happening, and let's say that this was in the login service, now you have to find out why were you observing 5xx only on this instance. Now you have to create hypothesis as well as flow of you have to create hypothesis of the flow that could be happening in the system. So let's say in this case, login API is coming to the ELB, and through ELB it is being routed to I1, I2 and I3. And this login API is being login service API is being served by a single database DB, and all these instances, this is the 5xx node which was giving 5xx. All these instances are querying the database and saving the data, saving data in database. Let's say we are observing 5xx only on instance I1. Then we have to create hypothesis of what must be happening throughout this architecture. So for debugging why something is happening, we have to first of all find out hypothesis of design. Or we have to figure out the design. Figure out the design. Hypothesis can be a bigger word. Let's try to keep it simple. Figure out the design. Figure out the architecture. We have to figure out what is going to be the flow of the system, what is going to be the architecture of the system, so that we have to check at each and every point what could have been wrong. One thing that could have went wrong is, let's say this connectivity was broken. If this connectivity was broken, then ELB would not be able to reach this instance. For example, let's take the security group of this instance was somehow changed. These are hypothetical cases that you have to check one by one. If you don't have a runbook or you are creating the runbook, then you have to find out all the hypothetical cases that can happen. For example, if this instance is not reachable, then the queries that APIs that are being routed on this instance can temporarily fail. And once ELB comes to know that its health check is failing, so ELB will be checking its health of this instance with the health check API, and for some duration it is going to send traffic from ELB to I1 even though connectivity is not there. Then in those cases we are going to observe 5xx on I1. That is one of the hypotheses. How right, how wrong, we are going to figure out later. Then what can happen is, what other things can happen is, due to any reason, due to whatever reason, CPU or memory on this box is high. Maybe some other piece of code is running, or maybe some extra software or application is also running on this instance I1, which is not running on I2 and I3. So that means they're not identical. That can also happen. Other things can happen is, it is a small instance. Let's say these are having 6 CPUs and this is only having 1 CPU. Let's say I1 is only having 1 CPU while I2 and I3 are having 6 CPUs each. So ELB is going to round robin the traffic. ELB is going to balance the traffic equally among these instances. So if there are 600 requests, 200 requests are going to be sent to this, 200 this, and 200 this. Though these instances are 6 core CPUs, they are able to handle the traffic better. But since it is a 1 core CPU, and if one core instance, so it is going to have high CPU utilization or memory utilization, and due to which there is going to be resource crunch on this instance, and it can lead to 5x6. And one way of finding CPU and memory or other system metrics is through graphs, which we can see on Prometheus. Let's say that the 5xx were observed during, so 5xx were observed during the peak that we have mentioned. So for example, let's say that 5xx was observed here. That assume that this is graph of instance I1. This is I1's graph, and 5xx were observed every time we had a spike here. So we have to correlate that whenever there was a spike in 5xx, whenever the spike in the error code, API error codes, there was a spike in CPU also. So we can say that whenever there was a CPU spike, there was consequent 5xx or errors on from our server. So we can assume that our resources on that instance are getting bottleneck. Other thing that can happen is, let's say the connectivity between these instance CPU and here, this connectivity gets broken. So instance I1 is healthy, everything is good, but it is not able to connect with the DB, which is actually powering the API. So it is going to create problem. It is going to create login issues. It is going to create 5xx or system error codes that it is not because in login API we have to read from database and the application is not able to reach the database. So that is also a case in which 5xx can happen. So these are few cases in which 5xx can happen, and how are we going to debug them? So we have to first of all find out all the components which can be present in the journey of whatever alert has been triggered. We have to find all those components. Then we have to think what can go wrong in each component. And then try to figure out by checking each and every hypothesis individually. So some hypotheses can be very vague, or some hypotheses can be obviously wrong, but it is good to have a hypothesis and then falsify it, rather than basically ignoring that thought altogether. So try to think all the things that can happen, and then try to falsify them by checking it from the system. For example, let's say we are not able to connect from instance I1 to database D. How are we going to check it? So for example, we have to debug connectivity of instance I1 to database D. How are we going to check it? So this connectivity, instance I1 is connecting to port 3306. Okay, so 3306 is MySQL port on which MySQL server is running, and we have to check connectivity of this port. So let's try to see how are we going to debug it. Let's assume that my laptop is the server on which we are trying to debug the issue. Let's try to check the connectivity by telnet localhost 3306. We try to run this command, telnet localhost 3306. This is used to check connectivity on this localhost, means my current system. 3306 means the port. Let's try to see. Connection refused. It is saying that connection is refused. It means that my system is not able to connect to the database running. It can be IP of the server on which your database is running, to check connectivity. So for example, let's try to check whether I am able to connect to google.com from my local system. How am I going to check it? Telnet. How am I going to check it? Telnet google.com and on which port do we want to check the connectivity? Since google.com runs on HTTP port or HTTPS port, HTTP port is 80. So let's try to check connectivity of google.com from my system to 80 port. It is showing escaped character this. This is the symbol that I am able to connect to google.com from my local server. To exit from this telnet, you have to press control. This caret means control in the character terminology. Control and square bracket this. You have to type these two things, control pressed and then square bracket. You can see this, and now you have to press control D, or you can just write exit. Sorry, quit. Okay, now you can write quit and it has removed you. Now you can check connectivity on port 443. Let's try to check connectivity of google.com on port 443. It is able to connect. So we can say that we are able to connect google.com from my server. Let's try to exit from telnet by control pressed and square bracket. Now we have escaped. Now let's try to check whether we are able to connect to port 3306, which is MySQL port, Though MySQL's port is not exposed by google.com, but for the sake of checking, let's try to see whether we are able to check or not, whether we are able to connect or not. Look, it is saying that it is trying, but since it is not showing you the escape connected to google.com, or like it was showing for port 80 and 443, it's not showing that. That means it is not able to connect it. So we can try control C and it is going to exit. Now let's try to see, since MySQL server is not running. Let's try starting the. Let's try to check it again. Localhost 3306. It is not unable to connect to localhost on port 3306. Now let's try running MySQL server. Sudo service MySQL start. Asking me password. It is starting. Just so it has started MySQL on my local system. We can see that MySQL is running by ps grep MySQL. We can see that MySQL D or the MySQL server is now running. Earlier it was not running. So we can just try telnetting or checking connectivity of MySQL port from a local system. Telnet localhost 3306. Now you can see that we are getting connected to localhost for port 3306. That means now we are able to connect to MySQL from my localhost. This connection was closed because I didn't provide any other piece of information. So this connection was closed. So Telnet is one of the ways in which you can check connectivity from instance I1 to any other destination port. It can be any destination port. It can be port 3306, 3306. It can be any destination port, or it can be, for example, in google.com, we have checked on port 80 and port 443. We are able to connect on port 80 and port 443. But on port 3306, we were not able to connect. So it shows the connectivity of from an instance or server to another instance or server on a particular port. You are able to check connectivity. So if you have to debug whether you are able to connect to a particular service or server from a particular instance or server, you just have to run telnet command. With telnet, its syntax is telnet IP or domain name and port space के साथ. So it can be. So here we have done telnet google.com. Okay. Sorry, google.com port 80. Right. It was able to connect. Now let's try to exit it. Control square bracket close. Control D. And now try to let's try to find out IP of this google.com. Google.com. Its IP is this 142.250.195.14. Now let's try to connect to this IP on port 80. Telnet. We are going to copy paste with Control Shift C, Control Shift V, copy and paste, and let's check connectivity on port 80. We are able to connect. So it means that whenever even we are telnetting to google.com, it was basically connecting to an IP address behind this. You can see here, it was actually connecting to the IP address that was received from the google.com domain name. So domain name is basically a mapping from a human readable text to an IP address of a server or machine. So even when we are doing telnet google.com, it was connecting to IP address behind google.com rather than google.com doesn't have any specific identity. It is just a mapping of a name to an IP address. That's it. It doesn't have any special meaning. It just google.com. It basically maps a name. This is the name to an IP. That's it. Okay. So that is how we are going to debug 5xx. So we have seen how to debug 5xx. Now let's see how to debug high latency. Latency is the time taken by anything to complete its work. It can be a time taken by an API to send the response. So for example, you are sending slash login API and to the ELB, and then it is being routed to a set of services, login service instances, and then it is basically saving that information in database. There can be different database as in this is used for maybe user information and this is used for session information. Information. So there can be multiple databases, there can be multiple instances, and now generally let's say the latency or the time taken for login API to complete its work is 20 millisecond. And you have configured an alert that if the latency is greater than 50 millisecond, you want for 5 minutes. For 5 minutes, if it is greater than 50 millisecond for 5 minutes, for example, let's take this was my latency graph. This is the latency, this is the time, current time. Okay, and let's say this happens. This is 20 millisecond, this is 60 second, 0.2. Okay, so this starts to happen. So for example, latency has shot up from 20 milliseconds to 60 seconds. So for example, each and every login API is taken now, instead of it completing its work or instead of logging in the user in 20 milliseconds of time, it is taking 60 seconds for each login. What it would mean is that each user has to wait 60 seconds before he is able to log into your website. Now that is going to create user problems. It is going to upset your users, and even they are going to leave your website for some other competitor. So that is a very bad thing. High latencies can create issues anywhere in the system. So it is a very frequent issue. There are multiple reasons for latencies being high. We are going to follow the same approach for debugging. First of all, we have to start with where something has happened. Then we are what has happened. First of all, we have to find out what has happened. Then we have to find out where it has happened. Third, we have to pinpoint where it is happening, then we have to pinpoint and where can seem similar or same. We can consider them same as well, and then we have to find out why it has happened. So what has happened? We are getting high latencies on the login API. Where has that happened? We are getting high latency. Where has that happened? It has happened on the login service on these instances. Okay, and we are pinpointing. We are seeing that latencies are high on all the instances. They are not basically higher on just this. We can also check the graphs of ELB. ELB also provides monitoring graphs. For example, it is serving the request, so we can get 4xx, 5xx latency and other graphs from ELB as well, and they are also showing that latency is greater than 50 milliseconds for 5 minutes. And now we have to figure out why. So for working with this, we have to first of all hypothesize what could be the system architecture. If you're asked how will you go about debugging it, first of all you will have to ask him what is the system architecture, and if he says that, you have to assume, then you have to make a simple system architecture in your head of what all things or what all points of what all touching points can be in your system. So what is system architecture, or what all touching points can be present in the system? So we are going to check CPU utilization of all these graphs, all these instances, CPU, memory, etc. Then we are going to check connectivity of these databases. Connectivity, we have just learned how to check connectivity. Once we know that connectivity is also there, we are going to check CPU utilization of our database servers. CPU memory, and system health checks. Basically, these are system health metrics. We have to check those metrics from the graphs or dashboards. Then we can check. What is the query latency. What is the query latency? For example, if you are monitoring your query latencies also, let's say earlier your query latencies were 5 millisecond. Now it has shot up to, let's take 55 second. They were 5 millisecond. Now they have shot up to 55 second. Now you have an idea of what has happened. We now know that queries are taking much more time than usual. Now there can be multiple reasons for query taking higher time. One of the reasons can be high time. Why would a query take a high time? Maybe there has been some change in query. There has been a recent deployment in which there was some change in query, which was not basically which was tested but not from production scope, because many things can change from staging to production. The amount of traffic, the type of traffic that is present on the staging environment on which testing was done can change in production. The system user behavior can also change in production. So that is one way that there has been some change in query. There has been system load on CPU, system load on DB, load on DB. There can be some optimization going on, that database is not optimized. For example, let's take what other things can happen. Now we have to keep visualizing all the components that can be present. So let's try to copy paste it here. Let's try to copy paste it here. Okay. Now what we have to do is we have to visualize what all other things can be present. We have checked CPU, we have checked connectivity, we have checked DBU CPU utilization, we have checked, and let's say we have checked DBU CPU utilization and other things. We have checked ELB connectivity as well. It is working fine. We may be missing some things from the architecture which may seem obvious but may not be obvious at the time of production issue. So maybe the disk that was attached to the database, one of the disks that was attached to the databases has crashed. Or maybe the disk is full. Or maybe the disk IO quota is full. Disk IO quota means how much read and write speed or how much read and write throughput the disk you have attached is allotted by the cloud provider. If the allotted quota has breached, or the threshold of the allotted quota has breached, for example, you are allowed to make only 50 Mbps request to your disk, and you have started making 60 Mbps due to a surge in traffic. Then your quota is either going to be capped or there is going to be a burst. So your quota is going to be capped, and you are going to observe higher query latency. So in this way, you have to visualize all the components that can be present. So for example, let's try to find out how are we going to find out the disk IO utilization. For example, there has been spike in the number of reads and writes on the disk attached to the database. Okay, how are we going to find out? We will find out using the iostat command. We are going to go to the database, or either we can run iostat command, or we can go to the monitoring dashboard for that particular database. If we have sent those IO metrics or input output as IO's input output statistics metrics to the monitoring database, then we will be able to utilize that monitoring database for visualization of those metrics. But let's say we are on that service instance or database instance, and now we have to find out what are the IO metrics of the disk attached to it. Let's try to find out. We are going to run IOStat. Okay. IOStat gives me the disk metrics. You can see it is giving me SDA. Okay. IOStat-H. So there are multiple loop. You can see there are multiple devices with the name loop. We are going to ignore them. How are we going to ignore them? Using IOStat-grep SDA. So it is now showing me disk utilization of just the SDA. Let's try to check what is SDA. Which disk is SDA? df-h grep SDA. You can see that SDA disk is attached to the root and the boot EFI portion. So that means /SDA is the root volume of my system. Now we have to do is, what we have to do is, we want to see the IOStat metrics in human readable format. We can write IOStat-H. Now we can see that it is giving me in human readable format. It is KB written and KB write. IOStat-H grep SDA. Okay. It's not giving. He is not. Okay. H. So it is showing, as you can see in this case, the metric for SDA is showing one line after the SDA. How are we going to get this metric? By writing hyphen before not after 1. We are going to show one line after the match of SDA. Now you can see that it is showing me this graph. Now we want to see, run this command every 2 seconds so that I can monitor what is the disk utilization of SDA volume. How am I going to do that? We are going to use the watch command, watch, and we are going to write this. So you can see we have run the watch command and it is running every 2 seconds. But let me explain something to you. Why have we written this IOStat command grep SDA in double quotes? Now we have written that in double quotes because if we have written this watch IOStat-H grep -A1 SDA, so we are not getting any output because grep is grepping the output of the watch IOStat-H command. And since watch IOStat-H command is not giving any output, grep is not able to get that data and find that pattern. So we want to run this command every 2 seconds, not just IOStat-H command. So we have to do this in single quotes or double quotes, and we are able to get that data. Okay, so that way we are able to run this command every 2 seconds and monitor it. So this way you can monitor the health of your DB. What else you can check? You can basically find all the components that are involved in the /login API flow. You have to find out all the things, all the touching points of that login API flow. Let's say this latency is 60 seconds, and let's assume that in the login flow we are calling a third-party API or another team's API. This is team's ELB, and we are calling their API, and maybe their API is giving higher latency. For example, their API is giving me 55 seconds or 60 seconds. Their API is giving response in 60 seconds. Since their API is giving response in 60 seconds, and during the flow of the login API, we are calling their API. So our whole API latency of our API is going to increase because we are consuming third party API or another team's API in between. So in this way, we have pinpointed that it is not our system's fault. It is another system which we are consuming by API, which is having higher latencies. So due to that, intern slash login API's latency is on the higher side. So this is the dependency issue. So one of the dependencies of the login API is having higher latencies, and that's why your login API is giving high latency. So you have to find out all the components that are connected. They can be infra components, they can be software components in terms of API calls, they can be cache calls, they can be database calls, or anything that is doing some work in the flow that you're debugging. And then you have to make hypothesis of what can go wrong, and then check the logs in the central logging system, then check the monitoring metrics of various systems which are part of your login flow or which are part of the flow that you're debugging, and then try to correlate and then try to deduce what can happen, and with the metrics and with the graphs you can deduce that what has went wrong. So another type of debugging challenge that you can get is that that wrong data is being stamped. Now, what does it mean? In any flow or in any product that we create, there is going to be data. Data is the fuel that powers the computer industry. So there is going to be data, and sanity of that data, correctness of that data determines how your business is going to perform. So if, for example, let's say during order placement, you get during order placement you get a CST ticket, or maybe some other way you come to know that when orders are being created, the address that user has provided is not being stamped in the database. It's not being stored in the database, though address should be stamped, but in some cases, due to some reason, address are not getting stamped in the database. Orders are being created without their respective address, though users were giving the address. That can be questionable part, that users are giving the address, but you have to debug a scenario in which you get a CST ticket or you get a bug report that some orders are being created in which no address was being stamped. So you have to debug it. So this is a different type of, this needs different type of debugging. Issue remains same. What has happened? We have come to know that the some address or some piece of information is missing from some orders, though it should be present. Now where it is missing, we have identified that address is missing from the database. Okay, address is missing from the database for particular orders. We have identified where. Now we have to pinpoint. How this information or where this information was missing in the first place. So we have pinpointed that this information was missing from the MySQL database in table sales order address and corresponding to that order. Okay, now we have pinpointed there. Now you have to find out why. I think pinpoint is not a valid question to ask, because where generally second point where generally covers the pinpointing part as well. So let's try to cover 3 points. Point 4 is why. For that you have to find out architecture. You have to find out architecture of the application. For example, you have to find out all the flows. So you know that where is the address table. address table for some orders, address were not getting stamped. So we have to pinpoint how these addresses were missing from those orders, and we have to start with the users. Okay, so this is the starting and the endpoints, and now we have to find out all the ways possible that this journey is getting completed. So why am I drawing multiple lines when you can say that there can be only one order placement flow? Who knows that? You have to hypothesize, you have to think of different things that can go wrong, and then try to confirm that whether it was the case or not. So let's assume that there were, let's try to imagine that are there any different flows in which orders, in which some orders are not getting their address stamped. For example, let's we will first try to find out which flow address was not getting stamped. What were the steps taken by the user? If we are able to get that information, what were the steps taken by the user? What was the app version, or what was the web client that user used? Because that can create a difference. So as you can get, you want as much information as you can get in a sustainable way. You cannot just go on calling customers. You can get, if you can get that information, it's well and good. If you're not able to get that information, you should move on and try to get other pieces of information from your logging systems, from your monitoring systems. Now, once you come to know that, let's say this was the flow, because in single flows there are multiple microservices or multiple components involved, and the problem in any component can manifest itself as a bug, which can result in address not getting stamped in this case. So we have to pinpoint all these systems that are coming in between, and we have to cross check if the logs on those systems, logs from those systems were up to the mark or were as expected. And let's try, we will try checking logs in the central logging system, or going on the servers, and then let's say in the system, in system 1, in service 2, in service 1, in service 2, service 3, service 4, we find some anomaly in service 4. We find that there is some anomaly in the logs in service 4, and checking the logs, we find that there's some Java exception throwing. There can be some Java exception throwing. There can be some catch missing. There can be any possible thing can happen, and we were able to deduce that from central logging system or monitoring system. Not monitoring system. In this case, logs are going to be a friend. You have to find out. You have to dig through the logs. You have to dig through the different scenarios that could have happened. You can dig through multiple scenarios in your head, what could have happened, and then you have to figure out what could have happened. And let's say in this case, you see that network timeout. Network timeout. So you can hypothesize that what if DB connectivity to a particular server, or connectivity to a particular server was broken for maybe 2 or 3 seconds, and orders created in those 2 or 3 seconds were not having their address stamped. That can be one of the hypotheses. So you have to figure out all the touching points. They can be explicit touching points, for example, database. They can be implicit touching points like disk on the database, like caching system, sanity of that caching system, or stability of that caching system, or how the APIs that we have integrated with are performing. Maybe the API which was for example, let's take another scenario. Let's take another scenario in which system 4 is basically calling another service. It is, let's say, AI service, and system 4 is providing the address so that AI service can check whether this address is valid or not, whether is this address is safe or not in terms of fraud risk and other things. And in the response, rather than returning the address back, they returned an empty text. They returned an empty text or empty string. Now, since the code in service 4 was written in such a way that it is going to take the address from AI service and it is not going to perform any cross checking on that address. And if empty string returned by the AI service or the fraud risk service, we can say fraud risk service, which checks the address for risk compatibility, which checks the address for risk compatibility. Since we are not checking the address given by the fraud risk service and we are passing the address returned as is, then in this case, empty string was getting propagated. And now, from now on, since every downstream service or every downstream operation that was happening is considering the credibility of its previous step, it is not rechecking it. And because it can be a waste of effort to check address at every operation, that check a particular text or particular data at every point. Validations are generally performed in the starting, so that user cannot pass a wrong address, but after that validations are generally not done. It depends on the architecture choice. So each and every service is getting empty string, and hence we are stamping empty string in the data. Or what can also happen is, since let's say there was a check in step 6 that if there is an empty string in the address, it is not going to stamp it, because empty string as good as not having the data, so it is not stamping the data, and it is failing silently. Since it is failing silently, that means there is no alert raised. There are no metrics for silent failure. There were no metrics for silent failure, and in this way, some orders were created in which fraud risk service gave empty addresses, and that is how you go about debugging it. You have to find out all the components, all the touching points of the flow, then go about checking your hypothesis of what could have went wrong from the logs and from business logic. Also, there can be genuine bugs in your code, because if you're writing code, there is going to be cases that have not been covered today, but in future those cases can become positive, or they can become probable. So they can be business logic bugs as well, business logic problems as well, which was not handled earlier, but now those cases are present. So they can be multitudes of things that can happen, and you have to break your problem down to the components that are present. You have to think about those components, what they're doing, what could go wrong. You have to check those logs, deduce from those logs, and try to find out what could have went wrong. And if you have those, and if you want, you can also replicate that flow, so that you can replicate the bug and try to fix it as early as possible. So that is it on the debugging, how to debug. But before finishing, I want to let you know that it is easy to debug. You just have to break your problem down. You have to check each and every component. You have to find implicit components that are present in your flow, and go about debugging it. I hope you have understood something from this video. Please let me know if you have any suggestions or advice to make it better for learning, make these videos better for learning. Thank you so much.